Inspiration can spark from anywhere in your data science journey. And in this video, I want to demonstrate a process I use to inspire the data I'm going to talk about today. And on this journey, I was actually going through Reddit, and in particular, the DataIsBeautiful subreddit. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with what Reddit is, as I was even a couple years ago, it wasn't until there was a big debacle around ownership changes with Reddit, and some of the very passionate Redditors were concerned with how the culture might change. And given how big this was, at least in my ecosystem, I figured, well, let me understand it a bit more. And this is a community where you can post virtually anything in the right community or subreddit, everything from how you've messed up a situation to even lots of relevant data science, data visualization, blogs, or subreddits that give you a little glimpse into a different perspective, a different way of doing things. And in particular, I want to focus on the DataIsBeautiful subreddit. This is a very popular subreddit. It has 21 million folks that are subscribed to this Reddit, and it's a really good way to look for new data viz approaches. Now, as it says here in the DataIsBeautiful subreddit, the subreddit is for visualizations that effectively convey information. Aesthetics are important. Aesthetics are an important part of information visualization, but pretty pictures are not the sole aim of this subreddit. You can see that this is a very large Reddit. It's been around for over 10 years at this point. And just by scrolling through, you can see that there are several different types of figures. We have a Sankey Plot here, we have another one here, and another one there. So maybe we're going to focus on Sankey Plots in this video. But let's continue to look. We have essentially a heat map. We have some geo data. We have an interesting bar plot. And we have another Sankey Plot. So let's just look at this. My job search over a 2-month period while still working. And you can see the idea of a Sankey Plot is to show the flow of information. So in this plot, they're showing they have 4 applications. 2 of them were rejected. So you can see how we sort of flow to this terminus here. And then we have another node where we have 2 interviews, 1 offer, and then that offer was then accepted. And then another interview where after the interview, they were determined to not be a great fit, one way or the other. And so you can see how we can use this to show the flow of information, whether this is an interview process, whether this is an engineering process, or even a chemistry process. Now, I'm not sure if you knew this, but you can create Sankey plots using Python, and in particular, you can use the Plotly Express library. So here I'm showing you the web page for the Sankey diagram, and you can create Sankey plots using this schematic here. We're going to create a figure object, and in that figure, we're going to add data that will be mapped into a Sankey visualization. And it's important to know you need a source, a target, and a variable. And this is what will determine how the data is flowing. So source 0 is going to flow into target 2, and then source 1 will flow to target 3, but also source 0 flows to target 3 as well. And so you can see how this being 0 is going to flow into B1 and B2. And this is how we can now generate these workflows. In a way, this is somewhat analogous to a parallel coordinates plot, which I've shown before, and I might show again in this context. And then the size of these bars, these flow diagrams, is the values here. So of course, you would expect this to probably get smaller if you have a process where we're subdividing, but can also get larger if things are being aggregated or summed up into a larger number. And so what I want to do next is use ChatGPT to create a data set, a chemically relevant data set, to demonstrate how we can create a Sankey plot using the Plotly Express library and our Python code. What I have now is a data set that was actually created using ChatGPT. I told it to create a data set that's relevant to chemists that will allow me to demonstrate the power of a Sankey diagram. And with that simple prompting, it has given me this workflow here, where I have my source compound, a destination compound, and a flow. So we can see reactant A is going to flow to intermediate B with a flow of 50. Reactant A is also going to flow to byproduct C, intermediate B to product D. You can kind of see how we can begin to understand the flow chart through a Sankey diagram visualization. And we can do this using Python to help us better understand what's going on in this complex transformation and in a real chemical environment This could be much larger. So this is a great way to visualize what's occurring. To create our plots, we're going to use most of the code that was generated in Plotly using the graph objects library and our pandas for reading in the data frame. And then we're just going to quickly read in our data frame that's called this chemical reaction Sankey data. And I want to show you what that looks like in the Python environment, though I just previewed it for you using VS Code. So here you can see we have all the data I've just demonstrated for you. And because of this complexity, it's a great data set for illustrating using a Sankey diagram. However, before we can directly visualize this data, we need to prepare it. So we need to create nodes and indices so that we can actually help the figure understand how to map the flow of our data. And so to do that, we're going to create a list of unique source compounds and destination compounds. Recall that will be these compounds here and these compounds, or this column there. When we do that, we will also enumerate those nodes. So let me run this cell, and then I will show you what the all nodes variable looks like. It is just a list of all of the nodes in both columns, the source compound and the destination compound. And then for the indices, it would just be the enumerated version of that list. So intermediate B occurs in the 0 position. Recall Python begins with 0. Product H is in the first position. Waste J is in the second position. And you can see that our entire list is now a dictionary of these indices. What we're going to do next is now map the source compound and destination compound using these indices. And that is very simple with Python because we can just use this map function and it will map this dictionary there. So I will show you what that looks like. If you now look at df.head, we have two new columns, the source index and the target index. And this is going to tell us where the flow is starting and where it is ending. So for instance, reactant A is going to flow into intermediate B, but as far as the code is demonstrated, it's going to be source index 7 flowing to target index 0, and this will flow throughout the process. And next, we're going to create the Sankey figure. And this is really cool because most of this code is sourced directly from the library there where we have our Sankey figure. We're going to create our graph objects object, and then we're going to use the Go Sankey to actually put the data into this figure object. To do that, we're going to use pad, which just gives us a little bit more space around the edge. We're going to define some other parameters. These you can tune to your liking. If you have a color scheme, you can actually use those as part of how you create the data viz. And then importantly, we have to tell the data how to link it. How do we actually build out the flow based on this data here? And so there is a source argument where we're just going to pass in our source index. This is where the data is starting. We have our target, which is where the data will then flow to. And then, of course, we have our flow, which was the value. How wide, how large should that band be as it moves from the source to the target? Here, we're also going to use the update layout method to update the title. So we're going to call this chemical reaction pathway Sankey diagram. We can modify the size of that and then render that using the .show method. And when we do that, you can see that we have our flow here, where we have reactant A flowing to intermediate B and byproduct C. We then have reactant F flowing to intermediate G. We have a byproduct and a product. And because this is a Plotly figure, we have some interactivity. So we can move these around. We can shuffle them if there's a way we want to capture this. And by clicking this camera, we can actually download this plot as a .png. If we were to render this entire notebook as a .html, we also could show this on a web page and it maintains that interactivity. I've used these a couple times at work as well as a great way, again, to show a complex process in a way that's highly visualized. Now, you can modify a lot of the attributes such as the color scheme, the size of the text, other parameters, or you can convert this into an entirely different plot like a parallel coordinates plot if the data is also amenable for that. So here, by understanding Python, by sourcing Reddit and the DataIsBeautiful subreddit, we have a new way to think about how we can show our data, how we could tell a story with the data, and in a way that's quite simple. Note, I just took most of the data that was here and just put my data in. I had to modify the data frame just a little bit, but this wasn't too terrible of a process. And if you want to try this, you can ask ChatGPT to provide you a data set, or if you want, I can put this in GitHub and you can download this entire notebook with the data and run it yourself. In any case, if you enjoyed the video, if you liked me going through and using Reddit as a source for inspiration for new videos, I will do that as well. In any case, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.